Welcome to another episode of Ask Earl Anything. This is number 19. Can you believe that? I started this a few months ago and all of a sudden I've got 19 episodes. So let's jump right in. I got a bunch of questions today. The first question is a holdover from 17. I missed this question. I apologize, Leon Tapp. The question is, hi Earl, thanks for answering my previous question about tom gating and post-processing. I have another question. Have you ever tried two 16-inch crash cymbals as hi-hats? I read online somewhere that others have tried it. Thanks again, Leon. Leon, yes I have. 16-inch hi-hats is something I have done. I've used out on gigs, mostly church gigs. The 16-inch hi-hat craze probably is a reaction to the 17-inch Steve Jordan hi-hat craze. He started way back in late 90s, early 2000s. He has a DVD out. I think it's called The Groove Is Here or something like that. I have it. It's a great DVD, Steve Jordan DVD. And he was playing some 17-inch Paiste crashes. I think he still has a setup with the 17-inch Paiste crashes. Zildjian started making some 16-inch light K hi-hats. 16-inch Jason Bonham was playing them for a while. I think also the other guy that plays with The Who, Zach Starkey, was playing them for a while. So the 16-inch hi-hat craze started, and then it seemed like every church drummer under the sun started picking up the 16-inch hi-hat craze. And that was about 2010, 11, 12, that right in that range, where everybody was going to bigger cymbals. That's when I started having a desire to have bigger cymbals. I wanted bigger ride cymbals. I never had a ride cymbal bigger than 20 inches until 2014 when I bought my Carope. That was my first 22-inch ride cymbal. I actually had a 21-inch ride. I started with a Rock 21 and I had a 21-inch. Actually, it's not true about the 22-inch ride either. I had a 22-inch ride back in the early 2000s. It was an HHX Evolution 22-inch ride, which I know they don't make a 22-inch ride. But I have a good friend who was a Sabian endorser that helped me get that cymbal. Unfortunately, I wasn't digging it anymore, and I traded it for something stupid. By the way, the trade of that ride cymbal directly correlates with the cymbal I'm giving away at 1,000 subscribers. So just so you know that, it went through my friend Dan Ritelli. He had an HHX dry bell ride and I traded it for that 22-inch HHX Evolution ride. And it wasn't, I had it for a couple days and I hated it, and I called him back and he'd already sold that Evolution ride. It was too late, I couldn't get it back. I've done this a couple times with things. That was one I really regret getting rid of, okay? But I remember taking it on a church gig once when it was in a small church and it just overpowered everybody. So I had a 22 for, I had a 22, a couple 21s, but I really started getting back into the bigger ride thing about 2014 when I bought the Carope. And of course I was playing dark. Carope is one of the darkest ride cymbals you could possibly ever want. It's super dark, great dark crash ride. But with the Caropes I would use 16-inch hats. And I have a set of Zildjian 16-inch crash cymbals. One is a K, medium thin, and I have a medium thin. I sometimes put them together. And then I have this Istanbul. It's called a Istanbul Pasha ride, and it's a thick 16-inch ride cymbal. My friend Alan Levine just gave it to me. He said, I don't know what to do with this, take this. Well, it's an interesting ride cymbal. I will say it is a ride cymbal, but it's very high pitched because it's 16 inches. So I never used it as a ride, but I stuck it on the bottom of one of the K Zildjian and the A Zildjian, and it makes a great pair of new beat hi-hats because it's like I don't know if it's 1,600 or 1,800 grams. It's a heavy stinking little cymbal, and then you put a thinner top crash cymbal on it and it gives you that chick you're looking for, you know what I mean? Now, my preferred cymbals these days is my 15-inch giant beats, so I like bigger hi-hats. I like the 15-inch giant beats, and I found I really love these cymbals. But I've played 14s most of my life. I've tried the 17-inch thing with 2 crashes. I mean, you just got to go for it, Leon. If you really want to do it, you got to go for it and just try it. If you got 2 16-inch crashes, try it. It is a sound. It's an acquired taste, and I will tell you that with the church gig when they're playing darker, it kind of works. But they're not quick. They're not for funk. I can tell you. You try to play with big, thick cymbals. It's a lot harder to get that funk thing going on it. But then again, if you're Steve Jordan, you use 17s, and it works for any kind of music. You can play funk circles around me on funk. So who am I to talk about bigger cymbals versus smaller cymbals? I'm just Earl. But I'm glad that you asked that question. Great question, Leon. I'm sorry you didn't get in last week's show. That was my mistake. All right. I've got a new question coming from Bacon Sense. And Bacon is new to the channel, or at least new to commenting on the channel. And he said to me, can you do a video about stick tapers and tips? Alright. Well, I can give you my preferences on stick tapers. Okay? I'm a 5A guy. So I'm a pretty middle of the road stick guy. But if you were to come in, if I was to pull out my stick bag, which I've done a couple Tales from the Stick Bag shows. I have all kinds of sticks I've been collecting for years. And I've got very thin tapered jazz sticks and very thin jazz sticks to thick marching sticks. Now, the marching sticks are for the pad. My preference on a stick is a wood tip. It has to do with cymbal sound. I want my cymbals to sound a certain way. Wood tip gives me the most natural sound. But if you need a brighter sound and you're playing on darker cymbals, nothing like having a pair of nylon tip sticks to make it work. So nylon tips have a place. You just have to know when to bring them out. The problem with nylon tip sticks is they do pop off occasionally if you play hard. I like a medium taper. Okay, I want the shoulder to have a little bit of weight. I like a little more weight in the front end of the stick. That's why you see me play with the back end of the stick a lot in my left hand. I like a lot of weight on the left hand. But yeah, medium taper. Right now I'm playing the acorn tips lately. But I like all different kinds of tips. Like if I pull out these sticks here, this pair of sticks has got a small beaded tip. By the way, this is one of my specialty sticks. This is a company called True Line Sticks. They don't make them anymore. And they've got this wonderful little handle bulb, which I really dig, by the way. I have a 7A version of it, which is more like a 5A. And I play these a lot. I just don't overplay them, but it helps me hold on to the sticks a lot because it really gives you a nice big fat thing to catch your hand on and you don't have to grip it so tight. So I would say medium taper for me. Thick taper's not going to cut it. Thin, I'm going to break the tip. And I've broken enough tips in my day. I like my weight a little bit more on the front end of the stick, but pretty evenly weighted. My stick of favorite choice today is a Los Angeles 5A, just because you can buy 4 in a pack for still under 30 bucks. So, and anything that's going to get me less than $7-8 bucks a pair, I'm a happy guy. I can't see spending 10 bucks on drumsticks. So, a pair, I have a hard time with it. So I buy sticks when they're on sale. Anyhow, I don't think I went super in depth. Maybe I'll do a Tales from the Stick Bag and I'll look at some different types of sticks. I have had these questions before, but Bacon, thanks for the question. I think you got another one in here somewhere. You may come up again. My next question is from Jeff Holden. And drummer Jeff, my friend Jeff says, my question for next week is, don't worry, it's safe. Do you currently work out at any drum books, stick control, new breed, etc.? If so, what are they? Well, to be honest, I don't work at any books, to be honest. I don't work out of them, meaning I will open up a page in stick control once in a while or syncopation once in a while to do some reading. I'm teaching out of those 2 books. I teach drum lessons. I only have a few students, but I do teach drum lessons, and those are the 2 books I use, Stick Control and Syncopation. I also use Realistic Rock. Now, if I really want to get into some reading, of patterns, drum patterns. One of my favorite books to pull out is a book called The Funk Drummer Workbook, and by Chet Dobo. It's a real old book, but it's got a lot of funk patterns in it. And every once in a while I'll put a click on and just practice that book. Most of my reading that I'm doing though lately has been charts, so I've been working on this Duke Ellington book and doing all these Duke Ellington covers. And that's really helpful for my chart reading. I have a bunch of other Music Minus One records with charts that I like reading out of too. But I don't work out of books like some guys do. Like, there are guys that really work hard on their reading and out of the books. I never have. Gary Chester's approach to New Breed, I never had anybody show me how to use it, other than I've heard how to use it and I've read articles on how to use it. And so I'll say that for that book. It looks like a really cool book, but I've never had the patience to sit there and work out stuff. When I sit down and play, I like to just play, and then I end up working out patterns when I need to and different things. I also like to play by reacting to music, and that's where the drum cover thing comes in for me, because a lot of the drum covers I do these days have no drums on it, and I react. So that's a great question about books, Jeff. Great question. I'm going to do a little advertisement for some of my videos this week. This has been an interesting week. Last Saturday I started with Journey's tune Separate Ways, the Steve Smith epic tune. I remember when it came on MTV and they're all playing, you know, air guitar and air drums and stuff, and I used to love the song. And it's got this one fill that I've learned pretty well. I mean, it's just basically a four-stroke rough. That's all it is. Okay, so it's now it's that's the rough. That's the rough. That's the way I learned it. I play the heck out of that rough some days. Some days it just comes out. But anyhow, I played it on Saturday. I do about 4 to 6 takes. I did not listen to it at all at that point. Did it by memory, and it was pretty shaky. There was some I went for some crazy fills because there's no guide. You know, when you're playing along with a song that's got a groove on it, you can kind of lock into the groove if you remember a little bit. I had nothing to remind me except for what I thought it was. I played it, and here's my thing with videos. I play them, I record them, I drop them, I mix them in Logic, I bring it into iMovie, I marry it with the video. If I like it, I render a video, and then I post it on YouTube as a private, and the next morning when I'm sitting there looking at videos, I'll open up that video on my iPad and listen with my headphones, and I'll see if I was in or not really. And that's really when I scope it. And I knew I wasn't in. So Sunday afternoon I came back in and did it again. And I released Sunday's track, The Best of Sunday, on Monday, because I thought if I pushed it off my plate I'd leave it alone. Didn't happen. I didn't leave it alone. I pushed it out there. I got a couple comments. Jay Klein said something to me about the mix. He didn't like something. One of the toms seemed a little out of whack in the mix, and I didn't hear it as much. It didn't bother me, let's put it, but it bothered him. Whatever he's listening to on it bothered him. So that kind of bugged me. And the other thing that bugged me was I was trying to play this really open tom thing where there's lots of drums on a 4-piece kit. So I did it. I proved I can do it, but it didn't sound as good as I wanted it. So Monday after work, I set the camera up, opened up the Logic file, and went at it again, 4 more takes. And the only difference was I set up the concert tom kit, which is what I got on here, the Pearl fiberglass concert toms. Played it, rendered it, listened to it, and it still wasn't there. And I'm thinking, well, I'm probably done with it. I get in here yesterday, this is Tuesday, this is Wednesday today, I'm recording the show, and I said I'm doing it one more time. I set the camera up over there, shot the drums, came in here and cut it again. But before I cut it, I had a little intro with the camera I did, and I'm making a video, which will be out before this video, so I want you all to watch it if you didn't watch it. and it's kind of my journey to making Separate Ways, okay? And it's a process. You can see my fills get different. I start, especially the open fill section, where the bam, then you got the open fills, bam, you got the hits, and then you got the open fills, whatever you want to do. I played some pretty interesting stuff in there. But my biggest problem was coming out of something crazy I would do, and then coming back down on the one. I had some real issues with that. I must have played it about 24 times this week. So I'm releasing that video before Ask Earl Anything on Friday, because I already made it. And then I'm going to release the final version of Separate Ways either Saturday or early next week, one of the two. So we'll see what happens. But anyhow, doing a little commercial for myself. Just wanted you guys all to know where things are going. But that's why I'm sitting behind the Concert Tom kit. Also got a couple other covers I want to do on the Concert Tom kit. But why did I bring that up? Because Jeff sparked me about studying and practicing books and stuff. Really what I practice is my drum covers. That's what I practice. Alright. Okie dokie. Alright, so this comes from Christian Vestergaard. He's from Denmark. Hi. It's always great to have international guys. He says, I'm a first-time commenter here. Really dig your channel, by the way. Here's a question. As a younger drummer, I'm 24. That's not young, Christian. Okay, you think it's young. In 1 year, you're going to feel old. It's 25. I can talk. I'm 57, going to be 58, so just so you know. It seems a lot of my peers are into what I sometimes call style over substance drumming. And what I mean by this is they spend all of their practice time shredding, chops, licks, fills, whatnot. And they don't ever work on their groove. I attended a school last summer where some of the guys would play in circles around me, but there was just no groove whatsoever. What's your take on this trend of young drummers not caring about the groove, but going all in on fills? I hope to hear your opinion on this, since you have obviously worked on your groove. Well, thanks for noticing, Christian. Thank you so much. And if this camera shuts off, I will definitely answer this question. This is a long question, I think. So let's take a stab at it. Great question, by the way. I think the trend of practicing licks over substance has come because you guys have access to the licks. I mean, we can watch YouTube, and what gets hits by people is crazy fills. The drummers who got the more crazy stuff seem to get endorsements, seem to get called out, you know, seem to inspire guys to want to do more crazier stuff. I always heard crazy fills in the context of music. So the guys I liked, they were guys that filled things up, like Danny Seraphin. Danny Seraphin from Chicago was known as like having solos in songs. The song Make Me Smile has got a drum solo at the end, a little drum fill solo thing. It's 2 or 4 bars, I can't remember. It's a 4-bar fill. So it's a 4-bar breakdown, okay? I've played it a billion times. I have a cover of this song, Make Me Smile. He inspired me to want to learn those licks. So I would practice those fills and learn it. John Bonham was another guy that had solos in tunes. And everybody would learn the solos and learn the intros because of the solos. So we learned it. We learned these licks to play in the context of songs. But today, with gospel chops, guys are just learning licks. They're learning a Weckl lick, and then they're just applying it on everything. And the great gospel players are groove players. I mean, I'm just trying to think of some of them off the top. I'm drawing a blank, and I've known some of these guys, like Gerald Hayward, great gospel drummer. He's a pocket guy, okay? Oscar Seaton, who was one of the first gospel chops guys, great groove drummer, plays with Lee Ritenour and a bunch of other people, okay? Vinny Colaiuta chops up the wazoo, okay? But he's a pocket guy. He can sit there and play with Faith Hill and play a country tune in the pocket. So you've got to have groove to be a great drummer. But the fills are what guys look for and what they get excited about. So anyhow, Christian, The point I'm trying to make and the thing I'm trying to say is, yes, groove's important. I'm not a big guy learning licks over substance. But I think the difference is your inspiration. Guys that watch video all day long and can see the licks and don't have to hear it, don't work things out the same way. A classic example of that is most drummers of my age learn the 50 ways thing. Now, when I first learned that, I did not play the left hand thing. I didn't play the left hand thing until I saw Steve Gadd on Saturday Night Live, and then I saw a transcription of it in Modern Drummer magazine in the late 70s, early 80s, okay? And it showed the left hand, going to a left hand. And then I remember seeing him on Saturday Night Live playing that thing. Now, he also does something with the foot. I don't play it exactly Steve Gadd, but I play it the same way I kind of learned it. Okay, but my first learning of it, I can't even do it wrong anymore. I would go with the right hand. I've been playing it so long, 30-something years now, with the left hand I can't do it wrong. But my first way, I would do something with the right hand. Why did I do it that way? Because I was a righty. That's how we played. We were taught to play across. And I heard it that way off the record. See what I'm saying? When you see stuff done by other drummers, it's a lot easier to figure these licks out. When you were listening to Weckl play these things without seeing a video of him doing it, you made your own way. You came up with your own. That's my Steve Smith thing I did before. That's the way I heard it. Okay? Now, if he played it different than that, I still heard it that way, and I still hear it that way, and when I play separate ways, it's going to be that. Okay? It's because I learned by listening, not by watching. And I think that's a huge reason why these gospel chops guys, they start learning patterns because they look cool. And let me tell you, some of these guys look great. They're awesome drummers. But the problem is, again, the problem is that they're not playing groove. So you've got to be a pocket drummer. Being a pocket drummer is the way to go. The great guys who have all the chops also can play in the pocket. I've said it before. Thomas Lang can play in the pocket. Benny Greb, great pocket player. All the gospel guys, Tony Royster Jr., pocket player. Aaron, what's his name? Spears, great pocket player, okay? These guys are pocket players. The great gospel guys are pocket players. So if you're just learning licks, you just want to get views on Instagram, you want to have your little lick shown, that's fine, you can do it. But you're not going to make any money playing stuff all over everything. How do you make money? It's this. The ability to play 2 and 4 will get you gigs. Okay? The ability to play it solidly in time will get you gigs. Nobody cares if you step over all over the singer's lyrics and play some crazy fill. Nobody's going to be really impressed with that. So you're on the right track, Christian. Groove over substance is the way to be. Alright. The next one is 2112 Drums. And 2112 Drums says, have you ever endorsed or been sponsored? Yes, quasi. My friend, good friend Dan Ratelli at DMR Custom Drums, I was one of his endorsers. He gave me a snare drum. He made a snare drum for me. I did some lessons for that. I've told those stories before. That's the closest I've gotten to a drum endorsement. I was hoping for a Sabian endorsement back in the day. I've had some good friends that have had endorsements, and I will tell you, because I doubt Remo or Evans or Cannon or Sabian or Zildjian are ever going to watch a video by Earl Bennett, okay, especially when I play Piety cymbals. They're ever going to watch a video by Earl Bennett and basically take my endorser friends and basically know who they are. But I've had a couple of real good endorser friends help me buy some cymbals, get some heads at a good price. So that I thank those friends. They know who they are. But no, I've never been endorsed or sponsored other than DMR Custom Drums. And that was for snare drums. And you know what? Today I don't want it. I'm happy playing what I want to play. Next question, another one from 2112 Drums. What's your opinion on dry, trashy cymbals that some drummers are moving to compared to traditional cymbals? I don't know if you've answered this before. I've kind of done a video on it at one point about trashy cymbals. So go back and try to find that video. I did one on trashy cymbals. I'm not opposed to the trashy cymbals. I think it's interesting, dry, trashy stuff. You can tell what I like. I've been playing a lot of Paistes. They're really good, but every once in a while I'll throw a cymbal stack in. I've had a couple videos with cymbal stacks in them and stuff. I think it's all about the ear and what you hear, and the kind of music you're playing. And I think if you're playing more progressive music where you're trying to be, if you're trying to play pop music, I think it's really cool. You got to have it. It's almost important. I mean, you got to realize most pop music is programmed. There's a lot of great drummers out there that are programming stuff. You know, I listened to a whole interview with this guy Wolf. Wolf is a programmer from New York. I listened to a podcast called I'd Hit That. And I'd Hit That, the guy on I'd Hit That, Dave, is a great guy. He's great. I'd recommend you find I'd Hit That podcast on iTunes and support the guy if you can. He is a great guy. I've listened to the first 100 episodes. I was following him 4 years ago when he started. So I've listened to every episode he's done up to 100, and now I'm catching up on some of the. He just got back in, and he took a year or two off. But this guy Wolf was one of his podcasts, and I was listening to it on my way home from Jacksonville last week on Friday night. And this guy programs most of the stuff he does, you know, and he'll play, if he plays something, they're going to cut it up and chop it up into samples and make it into a beat and beat detective the heck out of it. That's how they're making pop music. This is a guy that plays with Beyonce. He's done Beyonce albums, okay? Another guy that was talking about that was Aaron Sterling. I listened to his podcast. Same kind of thing. A guy, if you want to watch guys that use the crazy cymbals and different types of things to make different grooves, another guy is Blair Cinta, another LA guy. So there's a lot of guys doing that, and they dig it. They dig that sound. I think if you're doing pop music today, you've got to have those kinds of sounds. Another guy's Ash Schoen from England. He's got all kinds of stacks all the time. Aaron Spears, another guy. So there's a bunch of guys doing it. I think it's cool. It's just not in the songs I'm playing these days. So that's why you're not seeing it. 2112. Great question, though. All right. The next question is from Bacon Sense. I knew he had another one in here. Bacon asked the question, just PS random, my favorite drummer is Paul Wertico. He said, yours is Gadd, right? Not an easy answer to this question, Bacon, but since you haven't seen some of my other episodes, Gadd is definitely one of my influences. I would say my 4 main influences would be Danny Serafin, Steve Gadd, Jeff Porcaro, and then, you know, you're looking at your LA guys, you know, you're looking at your LA studio guys, which falls under Porcaro, you know, all your Rick Moratas and Russ Kunkles, all those guys. I will tell you a guy that is an influence on me that probably, I don't even know if I've ever mentioned him, but David Garibaldi. I do a lot of that. I think I've got a lot of my Ghost Note stuff from David, trying to play Tower Power stuff back in the day. I had a good friend, Pat O'Donnell, who was a Tower guy in college, and I was trying to do that. That's where I mentioned Funk Drummer Workbook. Chet Dobo's Funk Drummer Workbook was Pat's book. He turned me on to it, and I started working out of it. And all of Chet Dobo's book, Funk Drummer Workbook, was about David Garibaldi. It's playing funk. So I'd say David Garibaldi is another big influence too. But Gadd's definitely in there. You got it right about that. Gadd is one of my influences, no doubt about it. All right, I am moving things along this week, as you can see. I'm trying to make it trying to keep my story short for 2 reasons. Number one, because I've got to go out to dinner with my wife tonight. I'm supposed to be getting dressed now, and I'm not. And so if I don't finish this now, what's going to happen is you're going to see me in another set of clothes tomorrow, and I'll be finishing the show in over two days, which is my week this week. I'm doing everything over 2 days this week. So this one comes from my friend Mike Frazano, and Mike says, and he asked the question, do you normally have a bit of muffling on your snares when you're recording or live gigs, or is it EQ, compression, and recording that you use, or both? Your drums always sound great for the various tracks, videos you're putting up. You know, I've tried for years to not put anything on my snare drums, and I love when I have a brand new head on, leaving it with nothing on it. But one of the things I've learned recording in this room is if I don't put some muffling on it, the snare doesn't sound as good when I try to fit it in the mix. So there's a lot to be said about muffling. Now, as far as muffling goes, my favorite new muffler is my Rogers external muffler. And I bought this for $5 on eBay. With shipping was $8. I've got 3 of these now. I love these things. Moon Gel is a great trick, but I definitely use compression and EQ as part of my sound on the recordings. But for when I record, I've always have a little muffling on it, and you can adjust it how much you want. Great question, though. Thank you so much for asking questions. I do appreciate that. And I did this all so that I could get to my last, Mike was going to be my last question, but right before I came on the air, a new question from, I think, a new guy that I haven't really talked to. Maybe I've talked to once. His name is Jason Moore. He said, I noticed on certain songs you use different setup, more or less cymbals. Does it depend on the song, or is it deeper than that? What's your favorite setup as far as toms and cymbals? Jason, great question. I think the answer to the question is I use different cymbal setups and different drum setups for a reason, because I have different cymbals and drums to do that. If I only had one kit, I would probably use the same kit all the time, but I've always had kits with multiple toms. Like my first kit, my Gretsch kit, had, it was a four tom kit. It was 12, 13, 14 by 14, 16 by 16. Then when I got into college, I bought that in college, and then I added an 8 by 10 tom and an 8 by 8 tom. So I had 6 toms for my main Gretsch kit. So I was always mixing and matching. Sometimes it would be 12, 13, 14, 12, 13, 16, 10, 13, 16, 10, 12, 14, 10, 12, 16. I rarely use the 8 anymore, but every once in a while I'll throw the 8 up. It would be 8, 10, 8, 10, 13 I used for a while, 16. So I like multiple setups, and now that I've gotten older, I'm used to using a 4-piece kit, so it would be 12, 14, 12, 16 is my favorite probably, or 10, 16 is another favorite of mine. Now, because I've got so many kits, and I've got concert toms as one kit, I've got a little jazz kit with an 18-inch bass drum. I got a set of rototoms. Matter of fact, I may even pan over to this. I just picked up a 10-inch rototom, so now I've got 3 rototoms. So I got a 10, 12, and a 14. So I'm going to record with that kit at some point. I'm going to bring that into the picture. Cymbals, I've got 52 cymbals. I'm not endorsed by anybody. I've got a lot of Pisces. These are my favorite Pisces. You see up all the time. I got into Pisces about 3 years ago, heavily. I've always had some Pisces in my collection, but now I'm heavily into Pisces, and I love them. I really love the way they fit in the mix. There's something about Pisces and fitting in a mix. I wish I understood that earlier on in life, especially this B8 metal. I just love it. But I love dark cymbals, so I got a set of Caropes. It's 19, 22, old set of 79 Zildjian hats. And then I've got some other Crash cymbals. I had an 18-inch Armand Crash and a bunch of other things. And I got a full set of 80s, mostly 80s Sabians that I had for a long time. So with that and a few Istanbuls, multiple different hi-hats of different sizes, it gives me a lot of options, and that's why you see lots of different stuff. I don't have a favorite. Even though I've been favoring Pisces since I've been starting to make videos. Real love for Pisces cymbals. So, I actually had a guy down here in my studio who used to work for Pisces, guy named Ed Cliff, and I'm only name dropping because I hope he watches someday. he actually saw a video I did about a guy named John Hammond. And by seeing the John Hammond video, because he's a friend of John Hammond, the Nashville drummer, who's a friend of mine too, I did this whole tribute to John Hammond because he was such a nice guy and he gave me the drum lesson of my life and my first time in the studio, and I got axed. And that's, you want to hear that story, you got to go watch the video on John Hammond. But I actually sent the video to John Hammond and posted it on Facebook, which I don't do that anymore. I don't know why. I hadn't talked to John in a while, but we've been Facebook friends for a while. He was really nice. He liked it and stuff. That really made me feel good. But John, his Facebook page, Ed Cliff found it. And then Ed Cliff saw the video I did before that, which was a Peisty video. And then Ed Cliff contacted me, and we talked and we chatted. And he told me some stuff about Peisties. I was just starting to get into the Peisty thing pretty heavily. I didn't have the 20-inch Giant Beat yet. I had a 24 and an 18. I didn't have the hats yet, the Giant Beat hats. I didn't have this Big Beat Ride at the point in time. I didn't have this 16-inch Crash. I didn't have this China either. I had a 50520. Anyhow, long and short of it, he was such a nice guy. We went back and forth on Facebook a bit. He definitely contributes to the Peisty Facebook page a lot. And one day he flew into Fort Lauderdale and he stopped in and we hung out in the studio for the day. And that was that was cool. And I learned a lot about Peisty cymbals. And I got to tell you something. I'm really impressed by the way that the way they make cymbals. So I like Peisties a lot. Now I visited the Zildjian factory. So I've been to the Zildjian factory and I was there with Rosie O'Donnell's drummer. Who was Rosie O'Donnell's drummer? Let me just see if I can pull that name out of the hat. Because he was there with his kid. I was there with my son Matt. Oh gosh. Oh, I hate the fact that I can't remember names sometimes, but the guy used to be on the Rosie O'Donnell show back in the 90s. I was in Cape Cod with my family when we used to live in Jersey, and I called up the Zildjian factory, said, "Are you doing a tour?" It was a Tuesday, and they had a tour, and he was the drummer that was coming in to pick out cymbals. I just got the tour and got a T-shirt. My kid and I got a T-shirt. It was nice. Some product literature, you know. But Zildjian's a really nice company, and I always wanted to go to the Sabian factory in Meduc, New Brunswick, Canada, but that never happened. But I really like Sabian cymbals too. So anyhow, I'm a gear nut. That's the answer to the question why I set up so many different setups. And I try to pick setups that fit the music I'm playing. So this is a continuation of Ask Earl Anything. I thought I shot my whole show last night. I wrapped it up. But I realized I missed a few questions. So I'm coming back, and I've got my coffee in hand today so I can be like Jeff Holden today. Jeff's one of my favorite friends on YouTube. And I'm going to take the next two questions that I missed. So the first question is from Brian Corey. It's an easy question, so this is kind of a layup for me. Have you ever played a Zildjian Crash of Doom? If so, what do you think? Great question, Brian. I had a Zildjian Crash of Doom for a while. Now, I'll tell you this interesting story about the Zildjian Crash of Doom. About 2008 or 9, I think it was early in living in this home. There's a little music store in town called Chafin Music. And there were two cymbals in Chafin Music that were on sale. Each going for 65 bucks. One was a 22-inch Swish Knocker, which is the Zildjian Swish 22-inch with all the rivets in it. I bought that. And there was this other weird-looking dented-up cymbal. And it looked dented up and bent and everything else, kind of like that Peisty Crash I have that's all dented up and stuff, the traditional. And it was being sold as a package, so it ended up costing me about, I think I spent 130 bucks for the two of them. I think I paid more for the 22, but anyhow, it averaged out to 65 a piece, I guess. But it had a unique sound, so I brought it home. And then I had to start doing research to figure out what this strange cymbal was. It sounded very dark and jazz-like. And it was a 20-inch, and it had this kind of wobbly look, like somebody ran it over. But it was cool. It was dark and cool and different, and I thought it was a ride, and I thought it was some kind of special, you know, K ride or something. But when I looked into it, I found out it was a Crash of Doom. And I used it for a bunch of years. I actually put 2 rivets in it at one point. And as the story goes with my cymbals, eventually I get to a place where cymbals don't get used that much. This was one of them that didn't really get anywhere. I guess that's officially my first 20-inch crash. Even though I never looked at it as a crash cymbal, I used it more as a ride cymbal, to be honest. But I was playing at this church, and there was a drummer there named Brandon Downs, and Brandon was the first church drummer. He was leaving to get married. He got married and moved to Illinois. And upon leaving, he gave me this crazy Yamaha bass drum that I use as a gong drum once in a while. I've never used it in a video as a gong drum, but I've used it in the studio as a gong drum. And as a going away present, I gave him a choice of a couple cymbals I had. And one of them was the Crash of Doom, and he kind of dug that cymbal and he took it. So Brandon Downs has that cymbal now, I believe, unless he sold it. That was a few years ago. But that's who ended up with the Crash of Doom. I think they're really cool. Now this one had no markings on it. So the guy was trying to make it look like an old K or something. And the funny thing was, this drummer was one of the main drummers in town. I think his name was Harry Johnson. And he passed away very young, like in his 50s. And that's very young, by the way, guys. I'm in my 50s, my late 50s, not quite 60. And it's young. You don't realize that that's still young. Even though it's not as young as some of you guys, it's still young. All right? And as you get into your late 30s and 40s, you realize, yeah, he's not kidding, it's young. Okay? Then one day you're 48, 49, you're looking at 50, and you go, it's young. So this guy died of cancer, I believe. He was one of the jazz drummers in town. I never met him, but I ended up with 2 of his cymbals, and so that's my Crash of Doom story. I think it's a cool cymbal. If you find one, buy one. If you can get them cheap enough, definitely buy one. I was cheap enough to buy that cymbal. I used it for a bunch of years and then eventually gave it to somebody. Let's see. Question for next week. Have any YouTube drummers influenced your drumming? That's an awesome question, Adam. Awesome question. I started going to YouTube heavily. Well, I'd say as soon as YouTube came out, I started going to it. Because I loved YouTube for old concert videos and all kinds of stuff. So early on, I would come to YouTube and try to find things I couldn't find anywhere else. I mean, TV, you won't find old jazz videos and things like that. So most of my YouTube viewing early on was always jazz concerts, jazz clips, songs, you know, seeing Joe Morello or Buddy Rich or Steve Gadd or Vinnie Colaiuta or Dave Weckl or whoever. You know, whatever clips I could find. But eventually there was a couple guys that I kind of gravitated to on YouTube and subscribed to early. Probably in the early 2010-ish range. One guy was Bonzolium. That happened around 2013 when I got the Peisty cymbals. I bought my 505 and I was looking for it and I found him and I liked the way he rants. I think in some respects anybody who does this talking to the camera thing is doing a little bit of Bonzolium, okay? But there's a bunch of guys out there that do this. Another guy I follow from more of a lesson learning perspective is a guy named Austin Burcham. And he does really technical lessons and he'll do transcriptions. Not that I'm going to practice a transcription because to be honest, very rarely do I practice a transcription. But just watching a guy pick apart how you play something can be really unique. And he's done studying with the greats, and a great series. I get very inspired by watching it, so I definitely think his channel. Another guy is R. David. R. David's the kind of guy that would find the moon gel. As a matter of fact, he did the first gel clings video at the Dollar Tree store. He used to go to the Dollar Tree and spend $1 and find stuff that would be replacements for muffling, or he's crazy. He's got 100,000 subs. He doesn't need me to endorse in his channel. He does all kind of product stuff, placement in his videos. But he's really knowledgeable, he's really geeky, and he fixes stuff. I really dig his channel. So I learned stuff from him. There's a channel that a lot of guys that are really hip and going for that gospel chops thing and going for the jazz thing and come from the Berkeley School of Music kind of thing, guys probably find this guy named, it's the 80-20 drummer. And I latched on to him about 5 years ago. And if you want to look at some really outside permutation type lessons of how to play patterns and approaching how to learn some of this odd, I don't even know what to call this stuff anymore, metric modulation and all the crazy stuff that guys are doing today in the jazz world, your Mark Julianas and Nate Smiths and whatever. This guy breaks it down in an awesome way. So I find him to be really inspiring, and I will watch his videos. I've also found some drummers I've met in the world. There's a guy named Steve Davis. Steve Davis is a jazz drummer. I met him, he was playing with this guy, a sax player, Antonio, can't remember his last name, I always forget his last name. But he's a New York jazz drummer. He is such a different jazz drummer than a lot of guys. He plays colors. He's not like Bill Stewart, who plays colors too. Bill Stewart's a whole nother thing. But Steve Davis is really, he's got his own thing. And I really dug it when I saw him with, in London. I was in London in 2008 with my wife on our 25th anniversary. We went to London and we went to Ronnie Scott's. And I got to see Lewis Hayes playing at Ronnie Scott's and Steve Davis with Antonio Hart, his name is, the sax player. And I met Steve Davis that afternoon in a drum shop in London. And he was trying out cymbals. He was playing with cymbals, and we talked. And it was we were trying to debate going to a show, a London, you know, like the London version of Wicked, you know, the Broadway show Wicked, or seeing a show in town. We chose Ronnie Scott's. So I got to see the show. I went up to him after the show. He remembered me. We talked a little bit. He's got a YouTube channel. He doesn't have a lot of subs, by the way. Great jazz drummer. Totally different jazz drummer than most guys would think. And if you're looking at different jazz players, he's one of the guys you want to look. He's unique. I've also latched on to some of the early guys that really inspire me that were early on YouTube. Blair Sinta's a guy I watch a lot, and Ash Schoen, studio drummers. And, you know, all the major drum sites, you know, all the drum company sites, mycymbal.com, those are things that I watch a lot. But those were the guys, you know, and Rob Brown is a guy I found in the last 3 or 4 years. Steven Taylor I watched, but none of these guys I watched faithfully, you know. If I was watching anybody faithfully, it was Austin Burcham for a while in 80/20. I had like periods where I would just watch them every day kind of thing. But yeah, those are the guys. So, thank you for watching. Your questions make the show. And like everything this week with Steve Smith and Journey, everything's taken me twice as long. So, it's a 2-day event to make Ask Earl Anything for the first time. Anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys will ask some questions for Ask Earl Anything number 20. I'm getting close to 1,000 subs. I'm going to be giving away a cymbal. Really close. I'm actually at 980 or something today. So some people think I'm going to hit it this weekend. I don't think so, but who knows? You never know. That magic 1,000 thing, and I turn into a yellow pumpkin. Of course, it's Tony Williams yellow will be the pumpkin. You guys have to get that question. If you got what I just said about Tony Williams yellow and you lasted this long, leave a comment in there, and I'll put your name in there for the cymbal. Of course, if you live in Europe, it's going to cost you the tariff to get there, but you know, it's the way it goes, right? Tony Williams yellow. What am I talking about? Anyhow, thank you for stopping by Ask Earl Anything. I appreciate you watching the show. Have a great day.